we'll end off every episode with a segment called Here's the Thing. It's where I pick a topic of choice and I just discuss it for a few minutes. And my topic of choice this week is cross-checking. Now, it's come up in the other segments. There was the Clayton Keller cross-check to the head where I would have issued a 7-game suspension for that. And I have a video out on my Top Call YouTube channel right now called Cross-Checking Isn't a Talent. That's about a week old. It has over 30,000 views and tons of comments on the topic at hand, which is how ridiculous cross-checking is and what kind of an epidemic it is throughout the NHL. They really need to get back to when they cracked down on this a couple years ago in the preseason. They started to crack down on it, and it did go away. And then they just let it slip, and now it is running rampant again. And some of the examples I used mostly were from the front of the net. Now, we did talk a little bit in my buy request about the cross checks to the back, the little cross check shoves by the boards. Those are ridiculous. And the ones in front of the net. Why do the rules change when you are in front of the net? As a defender, you need to be able to find a better way to clear the front of the net than just pounding on a guy. I said in my video, that is not a bigger player using his size to his advantage. That is a bigger player who cross checks in the back. That's a player abusing his size and taking advantage of the fact that it is someone in front of the net who's concentrating on the puck, and all you have to concentrate on is them, and you are just driving them with your stick. That's not a talent. Find a better way. And I've had people say, well, if you take away some of these cross checks, you're going to lose the physicality from the game. I don't understand what is good about this kind of physicality. I want to see two people knees bent, shoving each other. I want to see them physically pushing on each other and fighting for that space. I don't want to see someone using a weapon and just driving it into some guy's back or the top of their head and knocking their helmet off. That's not a physical, clean battle to me. That's not fun. That's just abuse. I want to see actual physicality by two players standing their ground and being smart positionally and just being stronger and out-muscling the other person. That's not what cross-checking is. Now, sadly, I did ask a question on Twitter. I said, can we please name 3 ways to clear the front of an NHL net? And I was dead serious. And I said I was dead serious when I asked the question. And I didn't get one answer that didn't involve penalties or excessive violence. It was always slash the guy in the back of the legs or slew foot or cross check. There was no one that could give me a real answer. Someone actually simply answered Shea Weber, which I thought was hilarious and appropriate because that would be a good way to clear the front of the net. But no one could give me answers like boxing out, that sort of thing. No one can give me answers like being smart positionally. No one could give me answers like being goal side and moving the person out. It was always smash, crack, hack. Ron Hextall came up and that. Of course, he was really good at clearing the front of the net with his stick, as we know. Zdeno Chara came up. Obviously, Weber came up as well. These are players that are known for being physical. And one of the videos featured in my cross-checking isn't a talent video was Darnell Nurse cross-checking someone and Aaron Ekblad. These are two really good skaters. They're very big men. They are smart positionally. They are fully capable of moving players from the front of the net without resorting to smashing them in the back. And I did have someone point out, fair enough, that in Nurse's case, somebody was pushing on him. It was an Islanders player. I can't remember which one now, but they were saying he even cross-checked him first, and Nurse was just responding, telling him, hey, you can't do that. You can't get away with that. And you know what? Fair enough. Sometimes, like I said, things I would do as a player are different than how I would look at them as the Department of Player Safety. Sometimes I think a cross-check might be worth it. If you're really annoyed at someone and you really want to make something stop and you want to send a message, yeah, you might decide to cross-check somebody. But where I stand with that and always will stand with that is that you should expect to get a penalty for it. It shouldn't be legal, and you shouldn't be able to do it 4 times before that penalty is called reluctantly by the official who's like, you know what, I gave you 1, I gave you 2, I gave you 3, I had to call the 4th one. Don't give them the first 3. If you want to do it, that's fine, but you should expect to get a penalty. Every time I do it, there's times where I've slashed someone in the arm because I just felt like, you know what, I've had enough of you. You are being too dangerous for me. It's not being called. I'm going to slash you. I expect to get a penalty for it. I'm annoyed that the other person didn't get called, but I'm going to expect when I do it that I did it knowing that I was going to get punished for. And that's what cross-checking is to me. Cross-checking should not be your default move, your go-to play for clearing the front of the net. It should be a last resort when you're beaten, or it should be something that you do because you just want to physically hurt somebody. And to me, that's the wrong reason to do it. So if we just let people do it just for the sake of doing it and not call it, I think we're getting into a problem here. And we are already there. Like there's no arguing what I'm saying because cross-checking is a problem. Players are getting away with it. It's not being called when it should, even when it's forceful enough. So I think the evidence is right there in plain sight that we need to call it more strongly. And when players do it, they should be penalized and then they'll stop doing it. And then we'll know that when they do it, it's because they were either beaten, in which case they deserve a penalty, or they wanted to inflict pain, in which case they also deserve a penalty. I don't think there should be any other reason to do a cross checking. It doesn't really serve a hockey purpose, as I'll always refer to, and it should be called every single time. Let's get it out of the game as much as possible, especially cross checks to the head. There's an excuse should not be I meant to cross check someone in the shoulder and my stick slipped up into their head. How many times do we hear that? I tried to get him in the shoulder. I didn't mean to hit him in the neck. I didn't mean to take his ear off. My stick just slipped up. Well, I got to ask you, what are you cross checking someone in the shoulder for? Like, there's really no need to do it. It has no hockey purpose. That's why I would have given Clayton Keller 7 games for cross-checking that player in the head. Because, first of all, it was away from the puck. It was after a battle. I think it might have even been after the whistle. And there's no purpose at all for cross-checking anyone in the shoulder. So there was 3 strikes there. So yeah, that's bumped right up into the get it out of the game zone, which is my 6 to 10 game suspension category. And I'm pretty consistent across the board with that. People were comparing that to the Austin Matthews cross-check to Rasmus Dahlin, and they were saying he got 2 games. How come Clayton Keller only got a fine? Well, guess what? I gave Clayton Keller 7 games. I would have given Matthews 10 games. Like you can't leave your feet like Matthews did, jump in the air and cross-check someone in the neck away from the play. I'm sorry. I know you guys are saying that in both cases, Dahlin was pushing and shoving and cross-checking Matthews, and there was no call, and finally Matthews had enough. Same thing with Clayton Keller. I know people were saying he took a couple cross-checks to the back. Yeah, there was a light cross-check to the back, and then there was another little push to the back. There was nothing that warranted turning around and driving your stick through someone's jaw. I'm sorry. There's no excuse for that. I don't care what happened to you before that. That's something that you're always going to be suspended for in my scale. Whether you think it's worth it to do or not, that's great. You may decide you want to turn around and smash someone in the jaw, but you're going to be punished for it. And that's where I stand on cross-checking. Cross-checking is not a talent. It needs to be out of the game, and it needs to be called to a lot tighter standard than it has been for the last 4 or 5 years now. Well, folks, that's it for episode 1. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Go to YouTube and subscribe to both the Tough Call channel and the Heavy Hockey Network channel. Look for the Heavy Hockey Network on your audio podcast places where you want to listen to the audio podcast. Subscribe to all of the shows on that network and check out heavyhockey.com.